Jenna, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Good, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview about your experience as an early adopter school. So I really am grateful. I think it's going to be really useful for schools to watch this little video and listen to your experiences. So just to get us started, can you just briefly share with us your experience of the last 12 months?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'd like to start by saying I have actually enjoyed being an early adopter. I feel it's given us the time we needed as staff to sort of get used to the changes, before it was statutory. So I've enjoyed that aspect of it. Yes, we were worried about the lack of information at first. It was like, sort of like thrown in at the deep end. And then obviously the pandemic's not really helped very much with all the lockdowns. But we felt as a team it would benefit us. We began by ensuring I had all the right information. So I went to lots of different sources and, looked at it all. And then I passed that on to staff. So I made sure staff were trained, but not in everything, because there was so much information started coming out. Would have bogged them down. So I was very selective about where I went for my information, and made sure they were comfortable. I wanted to promote the positive side of it all. Nobody likes change.
No, but, you're right.
Yeah. But I felt, after looking at the development matters and then the early learning goals, I felt they were really focused more and more specific. So I liked that fact. And then, you can build your curriculum around that. I like the element of, being able to tailor it to your school, children, your cohort even. So that was really good. The biggest change was obviously the not as much collecting data.
Right, okay.
Observations. And that took a while to get used to. Sort of held on, just a week for every child, and that sort of like expectation. That's how many pieces of evidence we need. But as the year's gone, the year has progressed, we've realised it's not necessary at all. By having more time to be with the children, play with the children, be in continuous provision, we have just seen such big, leaps in progress in their language and all their development. So that is a real positive side of it. And I think you just have to let go. It's hard at first. But just let go of it.
So would you say that that's one of the biggest changes that you've made is to your assessment systems? I'm not talking about tracking and data at this point, but actually in terms of your evidence. Is that one of the biggest changes that you feel that you've made? Yeah,
that is one of the biggest changes. And we've defined it that the only evidence we're going to keep is that big wow moment.
Right, okay, great.
Child as I've never seen them do that before, or we've been, rehearsing skills with them, and then suddenly they've got it and they're using it in their independent play, then that's when we record it. We have like event days that we take photographs, we'll put that on our website, so parents are still getting all that information. But for our assessment, we sort of defined it as a wow moment. That's what we record, and that helps staff to realise it didn't have to be every little step that the child takes to get there. It's sort of just that big wow at the end.
So where do you keep that information, Jenna? What you do? Have you made any changes there?
Well, we were using Tapestry at first, but I felt parents weren't engaging as much with Tapestry. So the rest of the school used Seesaw. So as a school, we thought it might be nice to start Seesaw in reception, and then it progresses through school. So they're not having to get used to one system and then all of a sudden in Key Stage 1 it changes to Seesaw. So we've trialled Seesaw with our nursery. We've enjoyed using that. It's not got all the information on that Tapestry has, but it's quicker. So you store the children's work, in like a little folder linked to one of the areas. Then obviously share it with parents. Parents can comment, so it's keeping that dialogue between parents. So that's one of the biggest changes as well, is we're going to go with Seesaw from.
So you're going to carry that on in September. I think what you're saying about parents is really important, isn't it? Because I think even though we're not collecting the evidence just for parents, particularly in a reception class and in nursery, because you've got nursery, you want to feel that parents are a part of that journey with the children. And obviously it's really important that we find out things from home as well, isn't it? So if you find that Seesaw can do that, that's great, but it's not too onerous.
Yeah, that's it. We don't, the biggest resource you've got in your classroom is the adults, you know, that interaction with children. So we needed to take a step away from the iPad. We were bogged down with iPad. We were, oh, they've done that, let's take a picture. We've done that, let's take a picture. You know, and that what, and when we think now, when we look back, we're like, oh, we've had so much more time with the children.
Perfect.
And scaffolding the learning and moving them on and modeling that language for them. You know, that's the biggest resource. To step away from the iPad has been
and that's the essence, really, isn't it, of the new framework. That is the essence of it. And if you're finding that's really positive and it's enabled you to spend more time interacting with children, then that can only be a good thing, can't it?
Definitely. It will be interesting to see this year with no lockdowns, you know, because obviously away from school, so they have needed us more children anyway, so it's been nice to be able to do that with them.
Absolutely.
What
about your curriculum? Did you make any changes to your curriculum, or is that just been evolving over the year?
Well, we had a new head 2 years ago, so we spent a lot of time on our curriculum. Beginning of this year, we put all the new early learning goals into the curriculum, and we have a progression now from reception right the way through to year 6. That's our curriculum.
Brilliant.
In class, we loosely use the seasons and then, you know, celebrations within the season, and then we follow children's interests. I just find that inspires children to want to learn, you know, like a set topic.
Absolutely.
So that's not really changed.
No, but that's good, isn't it? I mean, obviously, because of the Ofsted focus on curriculum over 12 months ago, I think schools have really started to think about the curriculum intent, implementation, impact anyway. So really, to be honest, there shouldn't really be any massive changes, but it just is an opportunity, isn't it, just to reflect on your curriculum, make sure it's working.
We've looked at lots of skills this year, like what skills are children using in that area of provision, and we've sort of looked at lower skills, middle skills, and higher skills, and what can we do to move children on to the higher skills in that area.
Fantastic.
That's what we focused on really in our provision, and rich vocabulary. You know, introducing them all the time to new vocabulary and linking it into their play and into the learning. So that's been our big focus really. The skills that they need. What skills do they need? You know, by the time they leave reception, and we've got nursery, so we're going right from nursery up to reception. And nursery, you know, they're even picking up the skills we would think would happen in reception, but then because they're there and they're seeing it, they're now picking up.
Absolutely. So is your nursery and reception together? Is it a unit, Jenna?
Yes, we have it in the same class.
That's fantastic. So you can actually track that progress then, can't you, through from nursery through reception. So when you were saying that about progression, so as a school, have you then identified what you want the children to learn in relation to nursery and reception? Obviously child development features a lot in that. Children don't just follow that linear path, but is that how you sort of, as a whole school, you've attacked your curriculum?
Yes, we have. We've done that right through the school, what the expectations are for each year group as they move up.
Great. That's
nice, because then, I mean, obviously we're a small school, so we lead lots of subjects, you know, each person. So it's been nice that we sat together as a whole school to do that curriculum document.
Fantastic.
That was a good, because now as a subject leader, you know where the children are coming from and where they've got to.
And that's really important anyway in curriculum, but obviously with the changes to the learning goals and the educational programs, it was an opportunity, I guess, for you to reflect on subjects with subject leaders, there's sort of particular subject elements within the EYFS as well.
And it's just making sure there's a clear progression from reception, you know, into year one, that they're not, we didn't want our year one teacher think, you know, looking back at the old early learning goals, because obviously you've got to get them out your head, you know, and because they have moved on, you know, they are, especially the communication and language and the physical development, we find those there's much higher level skills in those areas to get them, you know, to that level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's needed to be passed on to your subject leaders and the Key Stage 1 teacher.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it sounds like you've, on this journey that you've taken, your own EYFS staff, obviously senior leaders have been involved, and also subject leaders, which is fantastic.
It is important to do it all together, even it's harder in a big school, you know, but time with the senior leaders and to have those on board is really important.
So would you recommend, I'm going to ask you a question about tracking in a minute, but would you recommend for sort of moving forward for any school who's, you know, actually taking on the frame, for all schools, should I say, taking on the framework in September, that actually that making sure that people are prepared just by reading and meetings and conversations, would you think that was important?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Even the conversations within your own team, you know, and then obviously to have that through to, you know, the head teacher. Everybody needs to be on board and understand the changes. So it's, I mean, obviously head teachers and senior leaders can't look at all the information you as a class teacher have looked at, but you can be picky and you can show that the important change really that needs to happen.
Yeah, it's going on that journey together, isn't it, with the support from senior leaders. But like you say, it's really important that you in the classroom are aware of what needs to be going on. So can I just ask you a question now about data and tracking? We are getting asked by a lot of schools because that's going to be one of the big changes, isn't it, that we're not going to be tracking through using the development matters bands that we've got in the current framework. And obviously as an early adopter school, you've already had to get your head round this. Have you got your head round it?
I think so. What we've done has worked for us, so you know that again, it is about choosing what works for your school. We just took the changes on board. I think you just got to throw yourself in there, haven't you? So we went away from obviously emerging, developing and secure. And our children now are literally, they're on track or they're not on track for, you know, if they're in preschool, it's the 3 to 4 that we're using. And then obviously the reception year is reception. So are they on track with what you're teaching that term? Or are they needing more support and so they're not on track? And then we've looked at which area has got the most children not on track. Put interventions in, or we've enhanced our provision, you know, to support that area of development. And the progress really is those, seeing how many children are now on track, you know, the next term when you come round to it. You know, that's the better way to sort of measure progress, isn't it? That more children are going to be on track.
Because you're really focusing now on what you want the children to learn, aren't you? So you're looking at that whatever time of year, whether it's beginning of nursery or the beginning of reception or halfway through the year, it's making you really focus. So if children are not on track, they're not learning those skills that you want them to do across all the 7 areas. That's when you can really start to adapt your provision, I guess. So then, you know, those children, for whatever reason, young children learn in different ways, don't they?
Of course.
You know, they make massive progress and then they might sort of stop still for a while. But changing your provision then, I suppose, enables you to, particularly those children who, it stops those children falling behind. So it allows you to adapt your provision to ensure those children who maybe are not on track get a little bit more of what they need to help them to get back on track again.
And it's looking at the smaller steps, you know, before jump. You know, some children just need smaller little steps to then make that big jump. They don't all learn in one line, you know. Some children, and again, it's, you know, some children, depending on if they're an autumn baby or they're a summer baby, will develop at different speeds. So it is just about looking at your cohort. Next year's cohort might be totally different. You know, this year we found a lot of physical development was needed, and that was because of lockdown, you know. So we had to put all our focus into that area, and it has had a big impact now on writing. So it's sort of tracking where they are, who's on track and not on track, but getting down to the nitty gritty in that sort of area of learning and seeing what they need in that area, because that area impacts on the next area. And that's what we've done.
Yeah. Can I just ask you a question about its sort of baseline? I mean, obviously last year it was all very new to you. I'm not talking about the RBA, the statutory baseline, but moving forward in terms of September, you know, so what did you do in terms of your baseline, or what are you going to do this September? Were you making any changes, or will you stick to what you did last year? What were you doing?
I mean, I don't like big long tick lists of
no.
That's not what I'm about. So obviously we needed to get our head around development matters. I like development matters. I think I like the new version. It was much more, you know, it was thinner and it was much more. So we use development matters just to sort of see where the children are up to, and that does understand the changes and get used to the, you know, the changes, and then the checkpoints that were in development matters, we looked at those as well. And we did our usual, you know, for the first 4 to 6 weeks, we just play with the children. That's what we've always done. That's what we will continue to do, because that's the way to see where they're up to, is by being in continuous provision with them. Yeah,
absolutely. So
if you're pulling them out to do group work, you're not getting the best from the child, because in their play is where you see everything.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always recommend, you know, that you can never really plan for the beginning of nursery or reception in terms of formal planning. Your planning really needs to be around your environment, your provision, so that you can get the most out of your provision, to find out about the children, what they like, what they need, because then you can't start to formulate your plan in terms of teaching. So you might already, like you said before, you've got your progression of skills, but you need to see where children are on that sort of continuum of skills before then you can plan. And like you've just said, every cohort is different, isn't it? Moving forward.
This year we are, because obviously lockdown, you know, stopped any sort of visits last year. This year we're inviting our new children in for a whole week every morning. So we're hoping, you know, that's in July. So we're hoping that will really, you know, that good start. And then we do home visits as well in September for our new children. And, you know, all those bits you do before then help that period in September.
Absolutely. It's not about waiting. I mean, and obviously, like you say, we've had the COVID restrictions, etc. So it's made this last 12 months or so quite tricky. But absolutely, you're getting to know the children starts this term, doesn't it? It starts with home visits. You know, if you can get the children into school, that's fantastic. And then when you come to September, you just sort of finalising in your mind, aren't you?
Where they're up to.
Where they're up to.
How they settle.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously we've got the baseline this year, which I'm looking at the positives of that, because you've one time with each child, you know, and you've got to take the positives out of that, you know, sitting down, enjoying that conversation. In that one-to-one.
It's having that special little time and making the child feel special in that moment, isn't it? Rather than feeling something sort of more formal. So just a couple more questions. If you were sort of giving any advice to anybody who's obviously starting the framework, or those schools who are going to be starting the framework, are there any things that you would sort of advise people to do in preparation?
Yeah, so obviously do your research. There's so much information out there now, so you do need to be selective to your school and your area and your cohort of children. Trust your own pedagogy. You know, we're early years teachers, we understand child development, so you've got to trust yourself. The biggest thing for me was connecting with local schools. So
good.
We had our EYFS cluster, and we found out who were early adopters in there, and we connected with those, and we held Zoom sessions together, which was really good. My head teacher knew another school that was an early adopter, so again we sort of got together. So that was really, really useful, is to connect with people.
That networking, absolutely. I think that's a really, really good idea, isn't it? Because even though each school you know, you'll be on your own journey, your community of your school is going to be very different to another school. You've got that opportunity to share ideas, so you're not just feeling that you're doing all that on your own. So that sounds a really good idea.
Yeah, because sometimes you sit there and you this, and then you're like, oh, but what if this isn't right?
Yeah.
So by talking to somebody else, it sort of helps you say, no, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I know this is right for my school.
Yeah.
And just do not replace one tick list with another tick list.
No, absolutely.
Embrace the changes. Embrace.
Yeah. It is an opportunity, isn't it? We've had the development matters, which we've had to use in a way, you know, when we pigeonhole children into a particular band, because we've not really sort of had the option not to do that, and now we can really embrace that that real understanding of child development. For me, some of the things that I've been reading, it really is about people tapping into that understanding of child development and doing their own reading and research about how children learn and how they develop, and then bringing that information to your own school and your own setting and your children and your community. So for me, that feels like it's a big part of the new framework. Yeah,
and give yourself time. Don't spend the whole of the summer holidays reading, because you know it will all change in September. You until you're doing it, you won't know. You'll tweak along, you know, as you go along the year, won't you? You can't start in September with it all ready. Don't worry about that. You know, just get your idea, what you're going to do, what you're going to baseline, where you're going to get your planning ideas from, and then take it from there and tweak as you go.
I think that's really good advice, Jenna. I think it is, you know, we would wholeheartedly back that up as a local authority, that, you know, everything does not have to be in place for September. It's a journey, isn't it, that the school need to go on, you know, with senior leaders, subject leaders, obviously all the early year staff. So it's just having some preparation in terms of that knowledge, isn't it? So making sure that you've got knowledge, and like you've just said, be ready to do your baseline, make sure that your environment, your classroom is ready so that you can get sort of an accurate information of children. Is there anything that you've read? Sorry.
Well, there will be exemplification material, won't there, for September, which will be nice for people to use well. And then there's loads of training courses that people can go on. So good to go on there and talk to other people and get
I think it will be our recommendation. So, you know, if there was any training around, you know, do some training, but do like you've said, so liaise with other schools, have little Zoom sessions with other schools in your local cluster, because you can then go on that journey together, can't you? And that'd be really useful. Is there anything that you've read, anything that you've watched that you think that would be useful?
I bought Julian Grenier's book. And that's been our little Bible, really. I like a hard copy of something, so I spent the money and bought the book. We haven't, you know, had that to hand all the time.
Is that the working with the revised framework?
Revised framework, the Lancashire planning document is good, the updated version.
The skills, the key learning document,
and then there's loads on YouTube, you know, the talks with Julian, they're really good to watch. There's things on Twinkle to download. We downloaded the mini development matters, you know, to have around your not as a tick list, just so you're in continuous provision, right? What does this child need to do? Where can I take them? You know, what are the next steps? And using it in planning. So that's handy just for other staff to have, you know, to hand, really.
It's just getting familiar. We're so familiar, aren't we, with the current early learning goals and the development matters. So you just need every opportunity you can just to get used to what the new terminology and the new language. I agree with you, and I've watched lots of YouTube videos. We as Lancashire have just put out an early years newsletter just on the statutory framework, just to try and help schools, you know, a couple of articles from head teachers and early adopter practitioners, just to and some links to some of the videos and things, just so that people can feel that they're prepared, but also not to feel that everything has to be.
And don't overwhelm yourself with them all.
So if there's one thing that you'd say to people to reassure them moving forward, what would that be before we finish?
Just enjoy the journey and just embrace all the changes, you know, and move away from, you know, all these observations and assessments, and yeah, just enjoy it. Change, isn't it? But we have to do it, so just enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenna. That has been, you've just got such a positive attitude about it all. That's great. And like you said at the beginning, nobody really likes change, but we've got this change. It's an opportunity, and I am really, really sort of keen for people to be reflective practitioners, which we do all the time as early years, don't we? But I think it's really an opportunity for us to embrace that change and really make it work for us and for our children.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and our families. So thank you so much.
Okay,
It's been brilliant talking to you today.